Welcome to Beyond the Qubit. I'm your host, Frank Dekker. Today we interview Matthias Kaiser, CEO of Pex Machina. What's fascinating about Pex Machina is they develop quantum simulation for precision medicine for oncology. And what I really like about Matthias is that Matthias has sales experience and he really wants to solve customers' problems. So he is not only focusing on finding a solution for quantum computers. No, he really wants to solve problems with quantum simulation. And maybe quantum simulation is not as technical as a quantum computer. I think it's really an interesting area to dive into. One of the things that we lack with quantum computing is real world applications. And what I would love to learn today and from the interview is how does Matthias see the opportunity for applications in precision medicine. Before we start with the show, I have an important disclaimer. I do not represent any company here, and I do it under my own name. Let's get started. Welcome, Matthias. Matthias, can you explain the mission of Pex Machina?
Yes. The mission in the end is to support companies in developing better cancer treatments. That's the mission. No quantum inside, nothing. That's the mission of what we're doing, is basically supporting companies in developing better cancer treatments.
Can you explain what bottlenecks does quantum simulation and oncology, precision medicine solve?
Yes. There I will also not go too much into detail, but basically, okay, let's start from the perspective, what is precision medicine in general?
Yes, please.
Right? Yeah, this is maybe the first place where we have to start. What is precision medicine? So traditional medicine is what I explained before, right? You have a cold, and there is a medication, or you have a headache, and there is basically everybody in the world takes ibuprofen, a paracetamol, or aspirin, however they're called, wherever you are. But this is basically the three medication that you have to choose from if you have a headache, right? So, and that works for basically everybody. And this was how pharmaceutical industry was operating until recently, right? It was basically, you make one compound that basically helps everybody. Yes, there might be some outliers where maybe paracetamol is not so good, or which get like stomach problems from aspirin. Right? So there's always like some outliers, but in general, one of the three will always work with somebody. This is traditional medicine. When you now go to precision medicine, it's you go away. You basically look at the patient and you say like, okay, to which patient group they belong. So you basically divide all humans in different subgroups. These subgroups are usually defined by some kind of genetic makeup, right? Like when you go with the aspirin case, you could say there's probably some reason why some people get stomach problems when they take aspirin. So people figure out why that is, and then they say like, okay, this group is probably not the best case if they take aspirin. They should take some of the others. This is like easiest case. But now you try basically to find medications that help these subgroups best. Not all, but actually just these subgroups. So it's an intermediate step towards a personalized medicine, where you then look at the single human. The problem is if you go from traditional one size fits all to like I subdivide in groups and to I look at the individual, it gets more complex, right? It's like you're getting from like, I assume everybody's kind of the same. I have my models for everybody, so I produce a drug for everybody, and for most people it will work, right? You go to, okay, I have this 20 different subgroups of people that I have to now each develop a treatment for, which might be quite different from subgroup to subgroup. Maybe from some subgroups it will be kind of the same or similar. Maybe for others it will be completely different. I have to figure this out. So you're making actually not for the whole population medicine, you're making for smaller subgroups, which means more medicine.
I'm with you.
You have to understand people better, like, their makeup better and stuff like that.
And
Yeah,
so that's the basic of precision medicine.
Yeah.
And then what bottlenecks does quantum simulation solve?
It's basically reducing the time that it requires, the time and risk that it requires to develop a new drug. This is the bottleneck, right? Because like everybody, I had a lot of times of discussions, also during COVID time, everybody was like, why are these vaccines so expensive, right? The production of medication, like the chemical production in the end of a medication is irrelevant to the price of the medication. But you have to imagine, like I told you, the AbbVie case, right? They bought a company, they wanted to commercialize medication, and they failed in clinical trials. Basically, what they said is, okay, our medication does more harm than good, so we have to stop the development. So they basically lost more than $6 billion on that deal, right? You pay that because the company, of course, has to make money. And when it lost this medication, it doesn't make any money on that. It lost 6 billion. So it has to earn with all of the other medication it has to earn these 6 billion back. It's a commercial organization, right? They
Yes.
are made for making profits. So that's why medication is so expensive, because you have to carry the development of that drug that you're taking. You have to pay with your medication. But second of all, you have to pay also for all the drugs that have never made it into the pharmacy. And this is the reason why a lot of medication are expensive, or why some medications are never brought on the market, even though they're helping, because nobody could pay for it. It would be so expensive that nobody could afford to pay for it. There are medications like this which are existent, but basically they're not used because they would be so crazy expensive. And this is just the case. You can now complain about this, but in the end, money is resources, right? It's like where you allocate resources. So if you allocated resources, you have to, it should be at least the resources that you have allocated should be at least as much as you get back. Better more, right? For a company, you should get more back than you have allocated. And this is the pharma industry. So if you can turn down the resources allocated side, first of all, that allows them to make more medications, solve more problems, basically, heal more illnesses, or at least treat them. And on the other side, it helps also to keep cost of pharmaceuticals down. So if you can actually make this drug discovery and drug development process more efficient, you have real impact on medication later on. And this is what we're basically doing, where quantum simulation comes in to basically make this drug discovery and drug development process more efficient.
Can you walk us through the barriers of entry for competition?
Barriers of entry is quite a big big discussion. I think there's a lot also to our USP, which I will go not into, but in general, what I have to say is it's technology, it's access, and it's knowledge. This is basically with one, if you have only one of the three, there is no way that you will enter a market. If you have two of the three, there is a possibility that you can enter the market. If you have all of the three, there's basically it's almost guaranteed that you will at least enter the market with a product. If you achieve success is another story, but you will at least enter the market with it, right? And this is basically what I have to say. So when we look at other quantum companies, they're very good on the technology side, right? There's many companies that do quantum simulation. There is companies that have some kind of knowledge of the pharmaceutical industry, but there are very, very little companies that have the access. We have a team member that has spent over 20 years in big pharma, that has worked with and for and has mentored people that are now working all over the pharmaceutical industry. This is the access part, right, that we have. But through that, we have also knowledge about structure, functions, strategies, how things are working, right? Who's paying for what? I mean, it's also a question, right? Like who's paying for stuff? But it's always like, as a startup, this is like, it's an underestimated problem that you might have, because many startups start to talk with some kind of technical people, and they're of course always super excited if there's anything that looks for them in some kind of way that it could be technically interesting or could help them, right? They're always excited about that, but they're usually not the people who have the money, right? So now you're and they often also don't know who has the money because it's not none of their none of their worries in their everyday job. So you end up with a situation where you have maybe some excitement within the company, but that excitement is like trickling out very very fast because you cannot find somebody that would actually finance that. And I think this is barrier of entry that you cannot just solve by just throwing money at. I mean, you can, of course, at some point, but it is very difficult. So it's technologically that is barrier to entry. Definitely, there's things that we know technologically that nobody else does. There is knowledge about the industry that we have, like whom to talk with, why to talk with that people, why it is interesting for them, and which problems we're solving for them. And third of all is access, right? We can just call these people. We can just like pick up the phone and literally just call these people and ask them. And that has helped us a lot also in focusing our business model because
Do you
we
have
can
an
just ask
example?
people.
Do you have an example how it transformed your business, the dialogue with your potential customers?
Yeah. I mean, we can go into something which is basically, I think this is already a truth that is far away now. We're doing now is basically it's also not a secret in the industry is that that pure algorithms are not interesting. It's just a fact. It's just a fact of the industry because you talk with people that have actual problems and you come and say like, oh yeah, I have this algorithm that solves a mathematical problem, and they're like, yeah, okay, well, why should I care, right? Because it's so far away from them. So um, the solution is comprised of much more than just algorithm or the technology. There's much more to it. There's also like business model, right? For what people are actually willing to pay, because it's always like between I mean, that's a very problematic dynamic that you have there, right? As a startup, you want to basically build a business model that squeezes as much value as possible out of this, but of course a customer wants to buy as cheap as possible. So you have to find some way that it's
Matthias,
both fair.
can we maybe talk about the value for your customers? What
Yes.
product and services do you offer?
So basically, what we do is we do simulations, quantum mechanical simulations of specific compounds or specific parts of these compounds, and then the translation into more to models that basically tell them something that they actually want to know.
And
Very
did you
broadly, I'm sorry that I can't at this
Yeah,
point in time be more
But to make
specific,
it
but
to
this
to
is
make it
this is basically.
more concrete for the audience, if your customers apply this, what are the benefits for them?
Okay, they get actually an answer to a development question. So basically, okay, let's think about how the drug discovery process works. It's not like this that they start with one drug and then they push it through, right? They start with like, okay, I have this problem I want to solve. I need to do this, or this, and now I want to find compounds. So this is basically like this is like you have identified your target, and now you try to find leads. It's called that could do something with a target, whatever that might be, right? So you have like, I don't know, you want to kill a cell, and you have different kind of like, you could use antibodies and attach them to something to some protein on the surface of that cell or whatever, right? There's different options that you always have. And then you try to figure out what of these options are viable options. So in the end, the benefit that they have is that by simulating more precisely what these compounds can do or can't do, they can reduce the amount of bad compounds that would maybe push through further to the drug discovery process. There's other things that we also do that brings value. Like for example, then optimizing, then the lead optimization. So you go away from decided for rough chemical, and then you try to basically figure out how that could look actually more in detail. This is basically where we help reducing, making it more efficient, requiring less experimentation because experimentation is expensive, and giving information about these systems, right? It's a lot of, especially if you go to precision and into personalized medicine, there's a lot of fine tuning that you have to do. It's not that you can just give somebody paracetamol and all is good. It's basically you have to fine tuning of your compounds, and their simulations will become much more I mean, there's experimental systems, highly automated systems that are definitely doing a very, very good job on the experimentation side, but there's definitely also a big opportunity still for optimization. Probably even more, because drugs are getting more complex, way more complex than you could even imagine. I mean, before, basically, what you did is you took something out of some kind of organism, plant, bacteria, mushroom, like right, and you treated something with it. We're getting away from that in the pharmaceutical industry. So also tools have to follow this trend or make this trend even possible. And this is what we are doing.
Can you walk us through the business momentum and especially customer adoption? Do you have proof that there is demand for the solutions?
I will not go into detail of the business model. I will tell so much that a pure software as a service business model is not the best model in that industry. But I will not tell what are our business model, because I think that is also a lot from our USP.
Matthias, can you provide some examples of customers where you work
Yes.
with or where you do
I'm
innovation
currently thinking
experiments?
about what I can share. So yes,
If it's
we have.
non-public, then please don't share
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So there is currently nothing public, but what I can tell you is that
Or describe it
there
maybe
is.
in rough terms
Yes.
without
So
naming
there
the
is
name of
big
the client.
interest. There's big interest in that, because or there's big interest of something of that, right? I mean, it's always like what I told you is very coarse, a coarse idea of all of this, and of course, customers are not necessarily interested in this coarse idea, but in very specific parts of that. And these parts we have identified. There's probably more that we have not yet identified, but there's some parts of this which we have identified with customers where there is real interest in what we're doing. And not just real interest, right? Interest is nice, but also commercial value and also the readiness to invest. So there we have parts we have already identified.
Okay. When would your
I
conviction?
will leave it at that. I think there will be probably some news whenever we can talk about them, but yes, I will leave it at this moment.
And Matthias, when would your conviction on the business momentum and on Pex Machina, when would it increase? What needs to happen that you say, well, my conviction has increased?
You mean from the customer side, yeah?
Yeah, from your side or
from our side, there's no increase in conviction possible. I mean, we all three left our well-paid jobs to do this. From our side, there is, I think we're already at full conviction here. From customer side, I think it's important to have proof, right? So we actually did very early on our already a first benchmark of what we're doing with actually relevant compounds for them, which is super important. I mean, it's a first benchmark. It doesn't show that we can solve an actual problem. It shows that we can solve a sub problem of a problem. But this is good, right? Because people need proof. And this is where you get basically conviction of the market is proof. It's not like nice stories about what you all can do. It's basically showing them that there's actually real value in what we're doing. And I think we're doing quite good at this point, showing actually customers value in what we're doing and connecting it also with real needs and requirements that they're having, because this is important, right? Like, even if you solve a problem, if you solve the wrong problem, nobody cares.
Matthias, can you walk us through the management team and can you walk me through the skills and the knowledge that your other team members bring? And maybe can we start with Sanjoy Ray?
Sanjoy, yes. Sanjoy, actually, he is our problem sometimes. So he comes basically from the application of problem space that we're trying to solve, right? So he knows oncology space. He knows what to apply for. He has actually a background in that field many years. So he's studied in I think biophysics was his major there. So he has a then PhD he made also there, and then he moved to the US and was leading different technological projects in different laboratories. He was working actually part of his postdoc was working on data that is used now for AlphaFold. He's not the only one who contributed to that, but he contributed. Some of the data is also part of the AlphaFold. And then he moved first to Merck. For the European listeners, I'm not talking about Merck. I'm talking about MSD, which is the American part of Merck, or the split off that they had for the US market. And there he was for 17 years in innovation, working. Different positions he had, but his main task was to bring innovation to Merck and new technologies. And he did that for quite a long while, introducing very impactful technology to Merck in record time. So he has a good understanding of how also the innovation cycles are working and what is necessary to introduce innovation, right? Because it's one thing, even if we have now a product that solves the need of the customer and that does things better in a place that it's actually required to do these things better, that doesn't mean yet that we're selling to a big corporation, because then you have all of the different questions of like how you get it in there, how you get from one person sitting there using your software to the whole organization using your software. And this is a completely different story. And there, Sanjoy has a lot of experience in basically bringing a solution from that like initial trial phase or like proof of concept phase into basically a system that is used over the whole organization. And then he basically joined, and during COVID, I think it was, he joined Johnson & Johnson, a leading technology in oncology and immunology, where immunology is autoimmunity in this case. So it's not vaccines, but it's autoimmunity. And yeah, so he has also a lot of experience in that, has also sit there on the panel that decided which drugs go and proceed in clinical trials. So he has a lot of experience in the process as a whole, right? Like from the beginning, early stage drug discovery, until it actually goes into the clinical trials and then is approved. So he has a lot of like covering that from a not just strategic field, but also from a scientific perspective. So
Okay, now
it's
that's
very,
very
very
helpful.
helpful to talk with him.
Okay, and can you walk me through the CTO, Valentin Kasper?
Yes. So he is so we make always a joke that Sanjoy is a problem side and Valentin is the solution side to that problem, and that's exactly how that is. So Valentin is basically specialist in developing algorithms for quantum computers. That's what he did at Kipo Quantum, but he was also leading research group in Barcelona to basically develop algorithm for NISQ devices. And he has a background in quantum many body physics, which is exactly what we're needing and what we're doing. So he has like the technological background and knowledge to first of all develop the algorithms, but then also to translate them in actual software.
Can you give an example how Pex Machina learns from mistakes?
Yeah, I mean that's all startups do, right? I mean, like I think there's no. I mean, that's what good startups do. Let's say like this, because bad startups they pretend there are no mistakes. So it's not like red mistake sounds always like a big bad thing that has happened. Like mistake sounds like, okay, you were doing something and then suddenly you realize, oh, this was a big mistake that we did there. I don't think this interpretation would be right in a startup in that sense, because it's more agile than this, right? We talk every day about stuff we do. So we figure out like, okay, did we do that correctly? What are our assumptions right? So we test also assumptions. We never assume that we know stuff. So then we have a thesis about stuff, right? And this thesis gets fat or gets not fat by information that we collect. So sometimes we have a thesis, turns out it's incorrect because we got information that is. So you have a lot of, right? You have like you think you have a general understanding of stuff on which you build like a thesis, and then you go out and basically try to figure out if that thesis is correct or not, and if it's not correct, what could be another thesis that would uh, better fit the measurement data that you have done, right? to, to express it very scientifically, right? You have like measurement points, and you try to fit your model, your thesis, towards these measurement points. And this is basically what we do. So mistakes, I don't know if this is the right word. It's more like, right, wrong thesis or not completely correct thesis, right? Sometimes it's not even wrong, but there is like small, you know, sometimes it's really nuances that make the difference, right? It's like no big company has worked out by having very broad business model. I mean, Amazon has started with shipping books and receiving money by check in the mail, which sounds absolutely ridiculous, like absolute ridiculous business model. But this was their thesis, right? And from the thesis, now they're doing everything basically, right? Because they moved in from nowadays perspective looking very ridiculous thesis. I mean, it worked, it made money with that, but it was not the place where they did the most money. This is basically what I mean. We really analyze what the customer says. Doesn't mean that you can always take it at face value what the customer say, because how they could have thought about some technology that is not existing yet. So they likely are not right exactly about the stuff they say, but there's information in that you can still take, right? They will tell you like how they do it currently. So does your product fit in how they do it currently? Would they have to change the whole structure of the company to use your product? Probably a bad place to start for a startup, right? So this is all like considerations that fall into this and that have to be refined on the way. So I would not say like probably we're also making mistakes, real mistakes, but so far we're building theses and trying to solve them. And in the end,
Ma-
this is the only way how this can work, because I don't
Matthias,
have all the answers. I don't have
can you talk a little bit about financial targets?
it.
So what do you try to achieve for the coming 3 or 5 years regarding
So
financials?
yeah, I can. I will not tell you what we want to achieve. It's a lot, and I think it's realistic. We have actually quite realistic cash words at least triple digit million, more like in the billion range, and we have I think very solid calculation there. I will not go into detail. Actually, we're currently working on another business model that actually will even bring us higher there, where we get actually where you can see that from that has already happened, that our value will be more in the billions, which is very good. But in the end, our valuation. So from a income perspective, we're existing since 4th of July, right? So I was actually not expecting, knowing out of how long I'm now in business development, like over 15 years or something like that. I was not expecting that we would get business this year. I was not expecting. Now it looks very much like we will have first business this year, like within
Oh
less
wow!
than 6 months
Congratulations.
of running the company. So this is nothing huge, but unexpected for me, knowing the sales cycles of big companies.
Can you walk us through the positive flywheel? Why can Pex Machina innovate the fastest?
Innovation is always a matter of, again, knowledge, access, right? So and also automation. In this case, we're very early on putting a lot of emphasis also on automation. So automating all things away that not necessarily have to be done manually by us. We're looking very much at this. The reason being, the more we automate, the more we can do trial and error, right? If trial and error is becoming too expensive from a time perspective, at some point you cut corners. So the more you can automate, the more you can also do trial and error. This is basically where we want to go. And then the other thing um, is access, right? We can literally call people and just ask them, like, we have this idea, like, what do you think about this? Or ask them, how do you do this? Like what are the steps that you're currently doing to solve that problem? Do you have that problem even? Right? This is like we could call the people and just ask them. which leads us away from some. So we had already cases where we had the thesis and we asked somebody and they said like, oh no, we by now already do this completely different. This is the way how we do it now. So probably this idea is not really relevant to us, which is good, right? You have already, like, you can cross it out. You talk with two people, they say the same, so you can say like, okay, forget about this, next one. And this is basically where speed comes from. It's not necessarily from like being the fastest to like being the fastest programmer in the world, having the fastest fingers. It's more about like, right, like very early on getting feedback, relevant feedback, and being able to execute on that feedback. And this is basically where we get our speed from. I mean, as I said, 1st of July, we're founded. First customers already in. Benchmark did. Patent filed. So I think we're on the speed side.
What is your biggest technology risk and how do you manage for this?
Technology risk. I mean, you could imagine probably that all the people listening to this will imagine that it's quantum computing is not happening. Probably would be the biggest technology risk. For us, however, it's not. We, as I said, we're not a quantum company. We apply quantum to an industry, but we're not pushing a technology. So even if quantum computing would never happen, I don't believe in that. I strongly believe that quantum will happen actually quite soon. And that's my personal belief. But even if it would not happen, we would still do on technological side well. I would actually not even know what could. There's many other risks that we could have, which are more like business model risk, general industry issues. But I think from a technological side, I would not even know what could be like really like existential risk for us. There are many others, as I said, from business perspective, but from technological side, I don't think that we're an application company, right? So our technology, like, we're not building a technology for building a technology. We're building a technology for solving a problem. And I think we're very good at this. That means that puts more emphasis on the business side, because the business side has to identify what is this problem, right? So the risks, in my opinion, are more on the business side than they're on the technological side, because if we identify correctly or have identified correctly, I mean, talk, right, we're startups, so things will change. Probably, I would be very surprised if we do in 5 years what we're doing now. I doubt it. We have ideas what we could do in 5 years, but probably we will do something completely different, not even what we have the ideas now. I hope, at least, because that's usually where the real money is earned, right? Like, Amazon would also not have imagined that they sell now, I don't know, server time on AWS cloud from selling books in paper boxes. So I think this is where it will lead us. So I see actually the risks are more on the business side than on the technological side.
Okay, that's clear. What
Long story short.
What is the path for a quantum simulation in your platform to a real patient outcome?
I think I elaborated already on this, right? This is basically
Maybe just 1 minute recap on that.
Yes, I will make it short. So if you can do better quantum simulations, you can do faster iterations in early stage drug discovery, which means that you can, first of all, have better drugs. So you already sort out all of the bad candidates very early on. That means the potential, the likelihood of a drug succeeding will be much bigger. But second of all, because you make it more efficiently, you make also the process cheaper, allowing companies to do also more drug development. That means in the end, you will get better drugs and you will get more of them. So this is basically the general idea, which helps the patient in the end immediately, right? Because there's a lot of unmet needs. There's a lot of side effects that would be avoidable if the drug would be more customized towards the needs of the specific patient. This is the first iteration, right? We're now like getting better drug for patients. However, what it also allows is actually to move from traditional drugs or from traditional medicine to precision medicine and then to personal medicine. So basically, allowing that transition of the industry, because industry wants actually to do the transition. They're already working really hard on precision medicine, especially on the diagnosis side. There's a lot of things happening. On the treatment side, it's so far it was tough for them because they're missing the tools. And then basically moving from precision medicine to personalized medicine, this would be from a treatment perspective, basically, it's not possible at this time. There are certain illnesses where this is already happening, but it's on a wider scale. I don't think this is currently possible without changing something in the tool set. And we are that change in that tool set.
I don't fully understand that. So could you elaborate on that?
You mean what does this change in the tool set mean?
Yeah, what is the change in the tool set that's required to make precision medicine successful? So without that, it would not be possible.
So if you have, so imagine you move from traditional medicine directly to personalized medicine. So that means you have to do the process of drug discovery that you do now that costs usually single to double-digit billions, right? From the first idea to actually the drug in the pharmacy that costs billions. It's very expensive. Imagine you would have to do this for each single person. Would not like just the math is not working out here, right? This would be just
what
not
is interesting
possible.
is Matthias in the past was like advertising campaigns that normally you had one advertising campaign on TV, and now they make customized with AI, they make customized advertising campaign tailor-made, and they look, okay, what is your preferred color, what is your preferred style, which country, which language, which etc 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 etc.
They do it because they have all of the. I mean, there are two parts to it, right? There's technology, there's AI to it, but second of all, there's also us producing data, right?
Yeah, providing the data.
Yes, I mean, in marketing, that has changed a lot because AI is nothing without data. The beauty of quantum simulation is that it's also a data generator, right? It actually generates data. It solves some of the problems of, especially in medicine, especially in early stage drug discovery, because if you imagine you're coming from a place where you have, so when you call, like when you look at small molecules, for example, as a treatment, you have a gigantic search space. I mean, your search space, something like 10 to the 60 or something like this, is your search space, right? It's like absolute, like you will never be able to do experimentation that would cover that search space. So you will have to use definitely AI machine learning. I don't say that we will not also do that. There will be parts of what we're doing, which we're already doing, which is machine learning AI based. But there's also a missing component that is data creation. Because how medicine is currently working is you have a compound that comes from somewhere, right? It's some kind of natural compound. And then there's, for example, a whole family of compounds that are based on nicotine, where they basically make changes to nicotine and then they treat a whole lot of different kind of illnesses from that compound. So if you want to cover some space of this where you not have been yet, how you do that? Right? So you have to basically simulate something. This is the only way how you can cover some of that search space to even understand if there is something of any interest to you. I mean, you will probably in the beginning not do that, but you will also stay closer to the already known space, but you can wander further out from this. Like Sanjo always tells it that you cannot only search your keys under the lamppost, but also check the surrounding a little bit, like move from the lamppost basically to a small enter. Not sure if this is the right English word.
Yeah, no, this is very clear. Okay, what is the hardware today relative to Pex Machina wants to be? And what can you do with better hardware?
So first
what
of
all, your biggest
shopping wish list? Yeah, fault tolerance. Full stop. Fault tolerance.
And why is that?
So this is the only thing that we would require is we don't need big systems. We probably would not need even fault tolerance fully, but it definitely.
And maybe taking one step back, Matthias, I'm not so familiar with the term fault tolerance. What do you mean with fault tolerance in this perspective?
In this perspective, I mean a system that so when we look at qubits, right, they are that are noisy. You currently NISQ systems try to deal with that noise. So you build algorithms which basically are functioning in a way that they can deal with some level of noise. However, that is not how classical computers are working. Classical computers are super super stable. They basically have like a non-existent error rate. It's so tiny that it takes years or even decades until a current processor like CPU would have a bit error or something like this. It's very very long times. Where quantum computing, we're not there. So this is basically what fault tolerance should bring us closer to, is basically having more ability of the qubits itself to absorb some of the noise that are around, to basically have more clarity on the actual outcome of the calculation. Because this is the biggest, I mean, we saw an area in quantum computing where basically people just made bigger chips, like more qubits. However, turning down the like increasing noise basically on the chips, because if you make them bigger, you have more noise in generally in the chip. And the industry went away, right? IBM was at the point where they had over 1,000 qubits, and it went back to 256 or whatever they have now, right? Because they understood like this route of just adding more qubits to it. At some point, it's not really working out anymore. So we have to actually make better qubits. And this is basically where we're going. And with fault tolerant, I mean that they push the reliance on noise way down. So we can actually be certain that the outcome that we get is also the outcome that we should get. This is basically what it is.
And
To
Matthias,
explain in very simple terms.
currently the solutions that you run, do they run on physical? They run on quantum computers, or do they run on classical computers?
They currently for now we're only run on GPUs. Yes.
Yes. Okay. And how much capacity do you need to do those simulations? And if the GPUs become more powerful, is then more possible?
We are already we can like the promise that I gave you, like the technological capabilities we have right now. So there is no technological ramp up needed to actually do precise calculations. We can do this right now. We can beat existing simulation algorithms in pharma right now at this point in time,
And why is that?
because we are using a specific set of algorithms that the pharma industry is not yet using.
Okay.
Basically,
And you have those algorithms, you have it from your previous experience. And how did that happen? It was the interaction between Sanjoy and Valentin and you that you said, well, you brought the things together and then it connected, or
yes,
how did that work out?
Valentin had like already from his studies, right? He did his postdoc in exactly these kind of development of algorithms, so he has like very broad knowledge about that. But knowledge, like you need a specific problem space to apply it to. I will not go into much detail here, but you need a very specific problem space to apply it to, because an algorithm. So okay, there's different layers to that, right? You can say I have a machine learning algorithm which basically tells you nothing, right? Like if like an AI company said machine learning algorithms could be anything, then you can maybe say I have a specific type of algorithm. But even if you have the specific type of algorithm, there's a million different implementations of that one algorithm. And even if you have then said one implementation of this algorithm, there are another huge space of like hyperparameter tuning and stuff like this that you could do. So it's the selection of the right algorithm for the right problem requires you to understand the problem in very, 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 very deep detail. Very deep detail. I mean, we are literally analyzing different kind of like molecules and how they behave with like their interactions, like how they look, stuff like that. So we go like really, really technologically deep to select the best possible algorithms for that. This is what we do from a technological side. So it's not a matter of like, so just having the algorithm side would not allow us to do what we're currently doing.
Why
So
is that?
it's an understanding of the problem space that actually
You
gives us
need
the ability
you
to
need
do that.
the technical tools, and you need the domain knowledge, because otherwise you cannot apply it.
Yes, because the tools are like, even if we say quantum computing, yeah, but what do you mean with quantum computing? Like there's a lot of algorithm, right? You can do optimization. I mean, you could start with simulation optimization or machine learning, right? There's already options. Within all of these three categories, there are like a whole nother space of possible options that you can choose. And there's obvious options for stuff like this. I mean, in the beginning, everybody was using specific VQE algorithms, QAOA stuff like this, which turns out for many applications not to be the right algorithms at the moment. Obvious solutions are usually not good solutions. It's just the matter, and there we go very, very deep. There you need to match. That's why we have also long discussions with each other, because we have to match on the one side the technological capabilities of these different options with the needs within the industry. It's not like an easy thing to do, because you talk often also about other things, right? It's like even the vocabulary between the quantum computing community and the pharma community is completely different. Sometimes we realize that we talk about the same thing, but using different words. Or even worse, you use the same words for something that is actually something completely different, or which is much harder to spot. Um, and just already this is already difficult, right? To even like understand what the other person says when they talk about something. And this takes us sometimes like several hours of discussions until we made like, oh, okay, right. So you actually meant this. I had something completely else in my mind. And this is like where innovation happens, is not like blindly applying a technology out of your own domain, but basically interacting with another domain and trying to understand what they're actually doing and how they do it, and then to basically match these together. And this is what we're actually currently doing. This is the main thing that like this is, I would say, like, despite having endless calls with investors and customers, but I think this is the main work that we're currently having.
Matthias, I have a few questions, general questions about the quantum industry, only if you're comfortable answering. What are you looking for to decide what quantum technology will win? And what quantum technology do you expect to win?
This is good. This is a good question. I'm thinking a lot about this. Probably none of the existent.
And why is that?
So, I mean, like, okay, I mean, there's first of all, like you can do it like comparing with like classical computing, right? Like we're probably like in the 50s, 60s of classical computing with quantum computing, right? Where the machine really matters. Like today, the machine doesn't matter, right? I don't really care what CPU is running in my laptop currently. I don't need to. Like it's just working. It doesn't matter from which company it is. It kind of does the same thing. Sometimes a little bit better, a little bit worse, but I don't really need to care about that most of the times. But it was not like this in the 50s or the 60s, right? You built machines that did like one specific task. Sound kind of familiar to quantum computing right now, right? Like, I mean, what can do a D-wave quantum computer? They can do a like very tiny subset of tasks, which is fine. If it's an impactful task, it's fine. But this is not where quantum computing will be in 30, 40 years from now. I hope at least that it won't be there, right? If it's successful, it won't be. And I don't think that current technologies which are on the market will deliver that, which is also no surprise because look at traditional computers from the 50s and 60s. They have nothing in common, like nothing. We were like actually a while ago in a museum for technology where you saw these old chips. I mean, they were partially like woven, the bits were like woven gold threads. Like there's absolute like has nothing in common from a technological perspective. And I think that will be very, very similar with quantum computing. So probably the technology that will actually win, we don't even know yet. This is my
It's quite a bold prediction. And who do you see as the game changers in quantum technology? And the game changers, I mean, if those people would receive X amount of funding, they would unlock certain obstacles that brings the industry
It's a
forward.
really hard question because I don't think that I'm deep enough in the technology to make that to really predict that. I mean, there's a lot of cool things are currently happening, right? Like yeah, there's a lot of announcement from big companies working on interesting research projects. Probably there are more than actual products right now, right? There's this Ocelot chip, there is Majorana, there is like a lot of different things that sound on the surface cool and interesting, but I miss the technological depths to like analyze them fully. I think there is benefit to all of them, and I think in general, it's a good thing to probably it's even a problem to assume that anybody has a technological depth to make the decision. I would say that it's likely a better way of spreading the investment because of that uncertainty. Because if you look again at traditional computing, if you look at .com, the best guess of most people were wrong. What will succeed? I mean, look at .com, where everybody was betting on. Like, okay, Amazon was already a big one, but there are other companies which were nobody was thinking that they would make it, and they did. So, and this will be similar here. So probably it's better to spread investment than to give it to one, because if you give it to one, you have the problem that that one fails, and you have the option to give also to others which maybe don't sound too promising yet. I mean, the current technology of building chips was definitely in the 60s not the most promising technology, because it was like the surrounding enabling technology around that was so far away from ever making a chip with that tiny transistors on that nobody would have even imagined that this makes even sense to go that route. Probably somebody will now pick out some kind of people who said it already in the 60s, but let's say like on a wider scale, I think there was nobody who would even predict where that goes. And similar, it will be here. So it would be actually a bad idea to give one player all the money to do what they do. It's better to basically what's happening already to split the money. So maybe this situation which we have currently, which is politically and probably also for society very bad, that we have again this moving back from like internationalism to like nationalism. Maybe it's even not the worst for the quantum computing industry, even though it's really bad for on a political and social scale, it's definitely bad. But for quantum computing, it's maybe not that bad, because first of all, it gives like options in the market, and second of all, also like a kind of like competition, which is like, I don't think we would have been ever in the moon when there would not be the competition between the US and the Soviet Union. Too bad it was, but there was like this competition aspect also increases like commitment on all sides to technology. And maybe the big thing is also not that we were on the moon, but all of the technology that was built while going to the moon. And maybe this will be also with quantum computing like this. Maybe it's a quantum computer is not the big thing, but all of the things that are built around it. I don't know, but it's definitely not a matter of deciding who should get all of the money. It's more of a matter of how do I best distribute the money to different kind of companies, that it's not wasted, but it is also brought to good value.
Matthias, maybe to conclude the call, can you give a 1 or 2 minute summary about Pex Machina? Why should investors care and why should they follow you?
I mean, I think we're first of all quite unique in the market. This is important. We're actually trying to build a solution of which there are not so many companies coming from quantum are doing currently. We're very focused, razor sharp focus. I mean, it's like we have not even talked about the kind of focus we have here, because I can't in this round, but with investors, I'm happy to share also more about the actual focus that we're having, that is even much more than what discussed here. We are also fast. We're fast in execution. We have access, which gives us speed, but which also gives us knowledge. We have already a good understanding of the pharmaceutical industry and how it works and where the product is relevant or not. And we have an amazing technology, I think, also behind. Like the technology, I was very surprised how fast we could get value out of what we're doing. It was actually quite surprising. But it comes not because it's like easy. It just is because we have the right technology and the right knowledge. So this is the business model. I can also promise that we have much cooler stuff that I could share here. Actually in the making, which includes actually very big plans, moving us out of even the I mean, probably quantum will be very relevant for us, but it will be not the core of our business in a sense. It will not. It will enable what we're doing, but the real value will be actually in that what we enable with it. And I think this is the real beauty out of this, because there are things that the technology we're having can enable to do the first time ever, and which are really, really impactful for the industry, which have immense value, that is probably we don't even understand yet. I mean, we have a good understanding of what the value would be right now to that, but I think the future value is even by magnitudes bigger. So I think we're working on an exciting technology in an exciting market with real customers, a real customer need, and also the financial capabilities of financing what we're doing on the customer side, right? They want and they can pay for what we're having. So I think this is the most, not all startups can tell that from themselves, that we know already that well in that short time basically what we have to build. We just have to execute at this moment, and for this we need investment. We need money to basically execute what we already know will work.
Okay.